Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to part 2, Zenith CHAIRSIDE radio restore. First, let's talk about this speaker that was in the radio. Obviously not a original. It's a Utah, which is a pretty good speaker brand back in the day. It's been spliced in as a separate transformer mounted here on the speaker. While I'd like to have the original Zenith speaker for the radio, this speaker apparently worked fine. I have checked the resistance on the plug and it is correct, so I'm sure it will work perfectly fine. Well, our first step today as we get started on this chassis, we're going to pull the tubes out. Chances are they'll all check okay. Very seldom I find a bad tube, but we want to make sure. And while we have the tubes out, we will clean the chassis up. It looks good, but there's some dust on it, and we'll wipe the tubes off, wipe the transformer off. You can see some dust on it. And then after all the tubes are known to be good, we'll start working on the chassis and see if we can get this thing going. And here's a tube tester that I use. It's just a Precision 612. It's an older tester, but it seems to test the tubes just fine. At least the tubes that I deal with. So let's see what it tells us. And the first tube we're checking is a 6F6. And tube's lit up. I have all my settings correct. Filament return. It just proves that we have good filaments right here. And we want the test positions 3, 4, and 5. And we're checking about 65%. But tube has no shorts, so we're going to call that a good tube. Next tube is a 6F5. And we've got about 70% emission on that tube. Well, all the tubes tested good. Okay, we've cleaned the board off and sprayed some cleaner in each one of the tube sockets before we put the tubes back in. So let's flip this thing over and start doing some work on the power supply. See if we can get it going. All right, first thing I'm going to do is check the power transformer. And according to the schematic, it says 9 or 10 ohms on the primary, so let's check that first. And it checks 12.8, 12.9, so that's good enough. Now we'll go to the secondary, test across these two pins of the rectifier tube. And we have 480 ohms. Now we need to check the center tap, which goes to the minus lead of the filter cap. 228. Now that we know the transformer is okay, I'm going to do just a mild power up with the Syncor power right, and see if we get any DC voltage at all on the rectifier tube. Alright, speaker's plugged in. If we do get anything, we'll see if we hear anything out of the speaker. And I need to get my test lead on the positive of this filter cap. Right there. I got my negative on the minus side. Okay, that's about 85 volts. And now we got 170 volts. What should we have? About 290. So let's run the power right on up a little more. We're on 80 volts. That's 100 volts right there. So we got close to 200 volts DC. and quite a bit of AC there, so pretty sure that filter cap's bad. And I hear a little crackle out of the speaker. That's a good sign. Clip an antenna on it here. Test lead. We're trying to pick up some stations, but our AC hums pretty loud there, and our DC's dropping back as it's warming up more. So pretty sure we got a bad filter cap there. Yes, it's getting really warm, so that filter cap is bad. This one, it's warm too. I think what they've done, they've just bridged this one on top of the original, or on top of that blue one. Now whether that's an original, I don't know. But anyway, let's put a new filter cap in place of those two. Well, I believe that one is bad, and it's really warm. No longer than I had the radio on. Alright, I have just a 10 mic at 500. I'm just going to use some test leads, and we'll tack it in temporarily and see if that helps. And we're already over 200 volts, and I have the power right on about 80 volts, so I think that's going to do the trick. That's 100 volts, and we're at 250. So yes, we're where we need to be. A little bit of leakage, but not much. Yeah, we're up to 266, and I'm at 100 volts on the power right. As I mentioned before on restoring these old radios, I have LED lights here in the basement, and they'll really wipe out the AM band with just a bunch of noise, so I'm going to turn them off, and let's see if we can tune any channels then. Well, that didn't seem to help much. I think all the noise that we're hearing there is just the overhead light, because when I turned it off, well, got practically nothing. And we're pretty weak here on the volume control as far as a buzz, so let's do some voltage checks on some of those tubes. Let's see if something jumps out at us as being way off, and we can go from there. Yes, the paper caps do need to be replaced, but I want to do some voltage checks just for my curiosity, just to see if something's really off on the voltages. First thing I noticed on measuring voltages on the audio output tube is 6F6. The cathode voltage is supposed to be minus 23, and we have a positive voltage there. So I would say the paper caps are probably need to go ahead and start replacing those. Just for kicks, let's check the first audio amp and see if these voltages are close to what they should be. The cathode should be a minus 2.3, and that's the same on the 6F6. That's supposed to be 2.3 right there, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, well, let's check it on this 6F5, and that's pin 8, 3, 6, yes, pin 8. And let's see if we have minus 2.3 on the cathode, or if we have a positive voltage. And we have a positive 20 volts, so that's leading back to those paper caps. So that's, I think that's the next step. Let's change those at least around these two tubes. Alright, I just cut out the old coupling cap and temporarily have one just tacked in there with test leads. We're still not where we need to be, kind of distorted sounding, but I think if I replace some more of these paper caps, it'll get better every time I put a new one in.
Except to save the life of a mother. So that is
Alright, major improvement.
what it is. I'm sure they'll continue to have discussions here, but today I'm grateful for.
And all I've changed so far, which is quite a bit, but not as much as you would think. 2 coupling caps. This is an electrolytic. And of course the first 2 electrolytics. And what an improvement.
North Dakota got most of the oils. We got Mount Rushmore, which we're happy for.
And in the basement here I can get a local station. That's about it. I have a metal roof on the house and no outside antenna hooked up. This is just some test leads I've got clipped onto the antenna terminals.
Energy policy and drives up the cost of weight.
Good volume now.
Family, it's not an option for South Dakotans to not drive, to not buy gas. Oftentimes their work is 30 to 40 miles.
Tone control is working.
You have to go anywhere and get it. Go get groceries, go to the doctor. So it impacts.
And switches, you know, the band switch needs to be cleaned, and volume control, tone control, paper caps. I'm going to put all new ones in. Don't want to leave them old paper caps in there. And I just wanted to mention, as I've tried to mention in most of my videos, when you're changing caps, resistors, or any kind of part, I change them one at a time. And what I mean by that is I'll change this cap, then I'll turn the radio back on, make sure we're still working okay, and then go to the next one. So if you make a mistake, you can pretty much know that you've made it on that last one that you put in, rather than shotgunning and putting 8 or 10 in at one time. Then if it doesn't work, it takes a lot of head scratching to figure out where you messed up. Well, I was able to change all the paper caps. Whoops, I missed one. Let me change it, and then we'll continue on with my conversation. Alright, now I have all of the paper caps changed. Really satisfied with my progress. We got the radio playing, and tomorrow I'm going to check these resistors. They may not be that far out of specs, but I want to at least test them. We'll just make sure that they're still reading within 15 or 20%. That's probably good enough. AC cord, need to put a new cord on it, and I want to pay attention to the way they've done this with the strain relief. Try to put the new cord back the same way, and then I want to clean the switches and the controls, and then finally we'll check the alignment. Alright, back on the radio this morning. Try to get this chassis finished up, shouldn't take very long. Have the new AC cord on. And next we're going to work on this speaker. I'll clean it up, and I'm going to redo these splices. Clean the wires where they look a little better. Let's see, this speaker replacement was done a good while ago. That's the old cloth type adhesive tape. And they did make a good strong connection. It's twisted together and soldered too. A little better. And I cleaned the wires. You can see the colors on them now. Wipe the speaker off. And now we'll check these resistors. This one right here. It should be a 38,000. And it's reading about 47, so that's a little more than 20%, so I'm going to put a new one in to replace it. And one thing you do have to keep in mind on these parts list, here's a resistor that I just changed, and it says 38 ohm, but that's 1,000, so it's 38,000 is what it should be, and reading 47, almost 47, so that's about 30% off. But we got a new one in, so it'll take care of that. And I found one more that's checking out of spec. That's this yellow one right here. It's supposed to be 220, and there again, that's 1,000 ohms. It's 370, so almost twice what it should be. So I'll be replacing that one too. And that's out of circuit, 375. So 220 to 375, that's quite a bit of difference. Got the overhead lights turned off again. About the only way you can hear AM down here. But anyway, we're all good to go. I cleaned the controls and switches while I had it tipped up. Last thing I'll do is just a quick check of the alignment, and then we'll say that this chassis is completed. Well, I just finished the alignment. A couple of the trimmers were just a little bit out, so took care of that. Did have to put the old dial back on along with the pointer to do the alignments. And there's several, there's like 9 different ones that you can do. Of course, some of them are shortwave and police band, but we went through all of them. And there's a boneyard of all the parts we replaced. There's one more thing that I did to the radio before I call it completed. Put a fuse. No, there's lots of folks that don't worry with that because it doesn't make the radio original when you drill a hole in the chassis and put a fuse in it, but in case something shorts, it does offer some protection. Maybe save a transformer, worst case scenario. So simple to do. There's actually a hole already there. I just enlarged the hole, put a fuse holder. How large a fuse? Well, I kind of based that on how much current the radio draws. And if we look at our Syncor, when I turn it on, we're about 0.6 of an amp right in here. So with a maximum draw of about 0.6 of an amp, when you turn the radio on, put a 1 amp fuse. So that'll do it for part 2 of the Zenith CHAIRSIDE Restore. And this cabinet may be the most challenging part of this restore, but we want to see what we can do to make it look a lot better. So see you then. And thanks for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button. And we'd love it if you would subscribe to our channel. Thanks.